foreign exchange student when I was 16 years old to the Netherlands. I was there for a year, and when I went, I didn't know a single word of Dutch, but I'm now completely fluent, and I learned Dutch and their culture, I guess, within that year. So I'm going to talk to you guys not only about the language, because of course it is the Language Expo, but also about their culture, because I believe that language and culture walk hand in hand. So first, I have this video that I'm going to show you to kind of put the Dutch in perspective for you and maybe clarify some things that you may be confused about when it comes to the Dutch.
Welcome to the great nation of Holland, where the tulips grow, the windmills turn, the breakfast is chocolatey, the people industrious, and the sea tries to drown it all. Except this country isn't Holland. It's time for the difference between Holland, the Netherlands, and a whole lot more. The correct name for this tulip-growing, windmill-building, hagelslag-eating, container-ship-moving, ocean-conquering nation is the Dutch. But confusion is understandable. The general region has been renamed a lot over 1,000 years, including as the Dutch Republic, the United States of Belgium, and the Kingdom of Holland. But it's not just history that makes this country's name confusing, because the Netherlands is divided into 12 provinces. Groningen, Drenthe, Overijssel, Gelderland, Limburg, Noord-Brabant, Zeeland, which, by the way, is the Zeeland that makes this Zeeland new, Friesland, with adorable little hearts on its flag, Flevoland, Utrecht, and here's the confusion, North Holland and South Holland. These provinces make calling the Netherlands Holland like calling the United States Dakota. Though unlike the Dakotas, which are mostly empty, save for the occasional jackalope, the two Hollands are the most populated provinces and have some of the biggest attractions like Amsterdam and Rotterdam. Chances are, if it's Dutch and you've heard of it, it's in one of the Hollands. Even the government's travel website for the country is holland.com, officially because it sounds friendlier, but unofficially it's probably what people are actually searching for. Confusion continues because people who live in the Hollands are called Hollanders, but all citizens of the Netherlands are called Dutch, as is their language. But in Dutch, they say, Nederlands spreken de Nederlanders in Nederland, which sounds like they'd rather we call them Netherlanders speaking Netherlandish. Meanwhile, next door in Germany, they're Deutsche sprechen Deutsch in Deutschland, which sounds like they'd rather be called Dutch. This linguistic confusion is why Americans call the Pennsylvania Dutch Dutch, even though they're Germans. To repeat, this country is the Netherlands, its people are Dutch, and they speak Dutch. There is no country called Holland, but there are provinces of North and South Holland. Got it? Great, because it's about to get more complicated. The Netherlands is part of a kingdom with the same name, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which is headed by the Dutch royal family. The Kingdom of the Netherlands contains 3 more countries, and to find them we must sail from the icy North Sea to the Caribbean and Aruba, Curacao, and St. Martin. These are no territories, but self-governing countries within the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and as such they have their own governments and their own currencies. Geography geek side note here, while Aruba and Curacao are islands, St. Martin is just the southern half of a tiny island, also named St. Martin, the other half of which is occupied by France, and also named St. Martin. So despite being separated by Belgium on the European map, the Kingdom of the Netherlands and the French Republic share a border on the other side of the world on an island so nice they named it thrice. But why does the Kingdom of the Netherlands reach to the Caribbean anyway? Because empire. In the 1600s, the Dutch, always looking to expand business, laid their hands on every valuable port they could. For a time, America's east coast was New Netherland, with its capital city of New Amsterdam. There was New Zealand, as mentioned previously, and nearby, the King of the Islands, New Holland. Though the empire is gone, these 3 Caribbean nations remain. And while 4 countries in one kingdom isn't unheard of, it doesn't stop there, because the country of the Netherlands also extends its borders to the Caribbean and 3 more islands, Bonaire, St. Eustatius, and Saba. These are not countries in a kingdom, but are cities in the country of the Netherlands, and they look the part. The residents of these far-flung cities vote in elections for the Dutch government just as any Hollander would, though weirdly they don't belong to any province, and they don't use the Dutch currency of euros, they use dollars instead. It's kind of like if Hawaii wasn't a state, but technically part of the District of Columbia, all the while using yen. These cities of the country of the Netherlands and these countries in the Kingdom of the Netherlands are together known as the Dutch Caribbean, and their citizens are Dutch citizens, which, because the Kingdom of the Netherlands is a member of the European Union, means that these Dutch Caribbeans are also Europeans. So in the end, there are 6 Caribbean islands, 4 countries, 12 provinces, 2 Hollands, 2 Netherlands, and 1 kingdom, all Dutch.
So I'm going to focus on mainland Netherlands rather than worrying about the various kingdoms of the Netherlands, because as you can see, it's pretty complicated. The Netherlands is a very small country. It's about the size of northern New Mexico. However, just because the country is small does not mean the people are small. The Dutch are actually the tallest people in the world. Their average height for men is about 6 foot half an inch, and the average height for women is around 5'7". This is actually a photo of some of my friends. He is 6'9", and she is around 5'2". Yeah. It's kind of shocking when you're, 5'1" here. Of course, another huge difference is the climate difference. In the Netherlands, most of the country is at or below sea level, versus in New Mexico, where everything is very, very high up and very dry. There's also a lot of water, so much water. And as he said in the video, the water tries to drown the country, basically, all the time. With all that water, it makes sense that the Dutch are the world leaders of water technology. Leeuwarden, Friesland, is the capital of the northernmost province of the Netherlands, called Friesland. It's also the country that the province that I lived in, and it is #1. It's the water technology capital of the world. About 2/3 of the Netherlands is vulnerable to flooding because 25% of the country is below sea level. Actually, one of their provinces, Flevoland, was previously seabed. They just took the water and pushed it out and said, okay, people can live here now. Because the Netherlands is also the most densely populated country in the European Union. It also has an elaborate network of dikes, and if all of these dikes were sewn together, it would stretch for nearly 50 miles, 80,000 kilometers. Look at those dikes. Look at them. Aren't they nice? I mean, they're pretty substantial. This is the Afsluitdijk, and it actually connects the province of Noord-Holland to Friesland. Noord-Holland is where Amsterdam is, of course. So if you're driving north from Amsterdam to go check out Leeuwarden, chances are you would use the Afsluitdijk. The Afsluitdijk is actually so big you can see it from space. And a cool part about it, I think is pretty interesting, when you're driving north, on the right-hand side, all the water is fresh, while on the left-hand side, all the water is salty. So it kind of splits it. And then here is another example of the Delta Works in Goes, Zeeland, which is in the southern part of the Netherlands. All of these Delta Works are the reason why Zeeland is not currently underwater. So they're pretty proud of these Delta Works, and they even have an entire museum set up for it. Of course, the Dutch are also known for their windmills. And actually, I'm not sure if you guys know this, but the reason that the Dutch have their windmills is because it pumps the water out of the land. So back thousands of years ago, they had about 10,000 of these windmills just pumping the water out, trying to get it all relatively out so they can build the dikes. However, the Dutch did not invent the windmill. But they utilize it to the best of their ability. And nowadays they use modern windmills, which harnesses the wind energy that they have so much of in the Netherlands because it's so windy there. Actually, their trains are run on 100% wind energy now. The Netherlands is a small country surrounded by bigger countries with more speakers. Because of this, children learn how to speak English as well as German and French throughout the schooling system. This is why around 86%, oh, I think I picked the wrong slide. Oh, sorry guys. Just as their label would suggest, nothing is more signature than the austere dynamics of the Dutch language. While the Dutch people speak Dutch, and teach it in schools, many people speak a dialect specific to their hometown. So in Friesland, they have many different dialects according to the village that they come from, and they also speak a language called Frisian as well as Dutch in that province. It's a little controversial with the other provinces, and many think that Frisian is just a dialect, it's not a language, but it is considered a language.
So
Because
which one did you learn then?
both.
Okay.
but I can't speak Frisian very well because you really have to be in the culture to get it. Because of the influence of the Frisian in the north, along with the other dialects in the surrounding northern provinces, there is a prominent accent difference that all fluent speakers can identify. The more south you go in the Netherlands, the softer they speak. So they called it the hard G, harde G, and the soft G, which I can't pronounce because I was in the north, but it's like a zachte G. Like they don't pronounce the G. And so for people who are learning the language of Dutch, it's actually very difficult to understand people in the south if you are learning Dutch in the north versus if you're learning Dutch in the south. It's very hard to understand people in the north. Eventually, though, once you become fluent enough, you can find out where everybody's from just by talking to them. Though this language sounds different depending on your location within the country, the general sentence structure is subject, verb, object, word order, just like German. Although the general sentence structure is maintained, they also use something called verb second order. An example of verb second order is saying something like in a moment, I think, which is zometeen denk ik. The verb denk comes before ik, so think I, technically, is that how it would be literally translated? So in literal translation, it would be in a bit, think I. So it's kind of weird. You have to tweak your brain a little bit. There are 23 million native speakers of Dutch in the world, and another 5 million people speak Dutch as a second language. The Netherlands is a small country surrounded by bigger countries with more speakers, and because of this, of course, the children must learn English as well as German and French in school. So that's why about 86% of the Dutch population speaks English as a second language. So if you go to Amsterdam or something like that, you should not expect them to speak Dutch with you at all, because they're pretty much fluent in English. So they'll just talk to you in English. I personally love the Dutch language. I think it's quirky and funny. Every time I learn a new word, I laugh a little bit first. So I'm just going to share some of the common phrases that the Dutch people use that I think, you might find fun to know. Of course, there's goedemorgen, which is good morning, and hoe is het met je? How are you today? Spreek je Nederlands? Do you speak Dutch? My favorite, of course, is komt allemaal goed, which is it's all going to be okay. It's pretty much the entire Dutch motto right there. Also, moet je zelf weten is very much so a Dutch thing. It's kind of like saying, you have to know it yourself. We're not going to make the decision for you. Also, success is like saying good luck. And proost is what you say when you are choosing with your friends in the pub. However, in the Netherlands, when you say proost with your friends, you make eye contact with every single person, or you have bad luck. And also they say alsjeblieft a lot, but alsjeblieft can mean more than one thing. Alsjeblieft can be like please, and it also can also mean here you go, alsjeblieft. Language and culture walk hand in hand, and food is a prominent aspect of any culture, of course. Some typical Dutch food that I personally love and think that any foreigner would die to have would be oliebollen, which is typical in the Christmas time. You eat it for Christmas as well as New Year's. It's basically, it's the upper right-hand corner. They take dough and they fry it, and it's basically like kind of like a cake ball, kind of, but it tastes different. And you put powdered sugar on it. It's very popular. Also, croquettes is it's very big in the Netherlands. They even have a McCroquette at McDonald's. And basically it's just like sauce with meat in it and in like a breaded shell. Bitterballen is pretty much the same as croquettes, only in ball form, and you eat it with spicy mustard. Poffertjes are my all-time favorite because they're just miniature little pancakes, and you eat them with powdered sugar and butter. They're tiny. They're so tiny. They're like this big. Hagelslag, I'm sure you probably all heard of, because the Dutch like their chocolate, of course, and so they eat chocolate sprinkles on their bread with butter in the morning for breakfast. However, maybe a little bit miscommunication. There's more than one type of hagelslag. There's milk chocolate, dark chocolate, but there's also fruity hagelslag for people who don't like chocolate or are watching their weight. But come on, if you're putting sprinkles on your bread,
Might as well
you're not
put it
watching your weight, okay? And then of course, stroopwafels. Stroopwafels are just waffle cookies stuck together with syrup. And you can put the stroopwafel over your cup of tea, and it heats it up and gets the syrup inside all warm and gushy, and it's so delicious. Many countries have a national food or two, and the Netherlands is certainly one of them. The two signature foods of the Netherlands are herring, or haring, and drop. Haring is basically, of course, the fish, and you cut the head off, take the guts out, put onions in it, and then you eat it like this. I personally don't like it, but to each his own. And drop is the most famous sweet in the Netherlands. Approximately every Dutch person eats about 2 kilograms of drop a year. Drop is basically black, salty licorice, which I think is like the most disgusting thing. It was awful. I wanted to cry when they fed it to me because they wouldn't tell me what it was. They just told me to eat it. So, yeah, you can eat it if you want to. The typical Dutch, definitely. Another typical Dutch activity, of course, is bicycling. On average, the Dutch person cycles around 1.5 miles every day. The Netherlands is also the bicycle capital of the world, with more than 18 million bikes within the Netherlands, which is more than 1 bike per person. This is actually a photo of the bike garage in Amsterdam. It's very, very hard to find your bike in a city because you'll park it and go, okay, I know where it is, and come back an hour later and there's like 50 bikes around yours that all look the same. This is a very famous fietspad. That's what the little roads are called for bicyclists, because they have roads for bicyclists to drive on. They even have little bike lights for those roads. But this is famous because Vincent van Gogh, the artist, he came from the Netherlands, and so this fietspad actually has thousands of rhinestones on it that you can bicycle on it, and it looks like one of his paintings. It's really cool. Since we're on the topic of exercise and healthy activity, skating is another big culture sport in the Netherlands. The Dutch are ranked #1 for speed skating with 23 medals for speed skating event in the 2014 Olympics. Children learn to skate very young, but not the way you may think. Skates in the Netherlands are a little bit different. They're very old-fashioned. It's basically just a wooden block with a blade on the bottom, and you attach it to your shoes. You just strap them on and call it good. Also, they don't really have skating rinks because it's unnecessary. It's so cold in the Netherlands, and there's so much water that freezes that people just skate on the nearest canal or lake in the nearest town. The biggest part about skating in the Netherlands is they have a race, and it's called the Elfstedentocht, the 11 Cities race. It's in Friesland, the northernmost province, which is where I live. I lived in Leeuwarden. And if the ice on the canals has been frozen for long enough, and it's at least 12 inches thick, and the temperature is, I think it's below, it has to be minus 20 degrees Celsius for 2 weeks straight. And then it's safe enough to do the race, but it's a huge event. People come from all over the world, and before the North Face and companies like that came into existence, people would actually die doing this race because there was such bad weather, and it was very unsafe. So generally, if you actually make it all the way around and back to Leeuwarden, then you automatically get a medal and you're considered a hero because you made it. Because after a while, they'll start cutting people off. If they didn't make it in time, they're not going to make it in time to get there before it gets too cold and they might die. So it's a huge deal. They even have a bridge dedicated to it, and this bridge actually has tiles of every face of the person who has won a medal.
Is it contiguous? In other words, that's one contiguous path, right?
Yeah, so you go Leeuwarden, Sneek, Aalst, Sloten, Stavoren, Hinterlopen, Workum, Boswaard, Harlingen, Franeker, Dokkum, and then back to Leeuwarden.
It's continuous. You don't stop.
No, you keep going. If you stop, then you're not going to make it.
So it's on canals, right?
Yes, it's all on canals.
And they're just all
They're all connected.
connected.
Yep, they're all connected.
Okay.
And it's one day.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know.
As you all probably know, the Netherlands is one of the few countries in the world where soft drugs such as marijuana are legal. You can purchase marijuana in designated coffee shops in many cities of the Netherlands if you're 18 or older. Prostitution is also legal in the Netherlands, but only if they're not a minor and it's consensual, of course. But they are only legal in the red light districts. Every city has a red light district, every major city that is, and they're regulated by the Dutch government. And you can tell it's a red light district because there's like red lights on the street, and of course you can see the red lights in the windows. So if you don't want to go near it, then you can see it far away probably. Another example of Dutch tolerance is the overall mentality concerning same-sex marriage. Same-sex marriage has been legal in the Netherlands since 2001 and is the first country in the world to legalize same-sex marriage. They don't particularly care. To add to this already overly tolerant country, its presence of cultural diversity is very prominent. With a population of 15.89 million people, which is the most populated country in the European Union, it may surprise you that 2.7 million of those people are foreign residents. They're not from the Netherlands. This makes the Netherlands an even more intriguing country to visit, in my opinion, because there's many different cultures represented throughout the country. You may ask what kind of government would so openly accept and legalize some of these things that we obviously do not in our country. The Netherlands has a parliamentary monarchy, complete with a prime minister. The Prime Minister is Mark Rutte, and he is also the leader of the VVD, which is the leader of the People's Party of Freedom and Democracy. It's the most famous political party in Parliament. They also have a Dutch House of Representatives. It's also called the Tweede Kamer, the second room, literally translated, which has 15 parties and 152 members of Parliament. So each province of the Netherlands is represented in Parliament. This is the Tweede Kamer, and of course, this is Mark Rutte. Unlike our president, who has to be in an armored vehicle when he goes to work, Mark Rutte just rides his bike. Along with Parliament, the Netherlands also has a monarchy. The family Oranje Nassau is the royal family of the Netherlands. Princess Beatrix, she is the former queen of the Netherlands, but she stepped down from the throne in 2013 to give it to her son, King Willem-Alexander. King Willem-Alexander is married to Queen Maxima, and Maxima is from Argentina. So when he was crowned king and she was crowned queen, it was a huge event all over the world because the Argentinians were celebrating as well. And of course, they have 3 daughters, and the heiress to the throne is Princess Catharina Amelia. The Dutch love to celebrate and drink beer any chance they get. One of their most favorite holidays is Koningsdag. This is the king's birthday and consists of beer drinking, playing games, selling your belongings on the streets, and just having a good time with your fellow countrymen. People dress up in orange, as you can see, and just go totally crazy. It's a huge national holiday. Even the king will come out and ride in a boat along the canals of Amsterdam and wave at the people. Like many countries in Europe, the Third Reich occupied the Netherlands in World War II. The Bevrijdingsdag is on the 5th of May and it commemorates the day the Netherlands ceased to be occupied by Nazi Germany. On this day, there are World War II fanatics that will dress up in authentic World War II military attire and convoy through 2 Holland provinces in their authentic World War II tanks and jeeps, passing out chocolate as the soldiers did when originally liberating the country. I actually got to experience this. As you can see, I'm actually in an authentic World War II American soldier uniform, and we rode in a World War II tank all the way through from Zuid-Holland all the way through to the Noord-Holland. And it was extremely cold because it started raining, and there's no heaters in tanks. No. But it was definitely an amazing experience. The most famous holiday celebrated throughout the Netherlands is that of Sinterklaas. Sinterklaas is celebrated on the 5th of December and is originally a Spanish holiday. It came from Spain. Sinterklaas is similar to Saint Nicholas, but instead of having elves as his helpers, Sinterklaas has Zwarte Piet. While Zwarte Piet are controversial because it kind of sort of looks like they're his black slaves, they're not his slaves, they're just his helpers. And it may seem kind of controversial, and the country contemplates changing it every year, but they're never actually going to do it because it's just their culture. So the the story that children are told is if they put their shoes out at night with a carrot in it for Sinterklaas's horse, he will come and take the carrot out for his horse and leave you with candy in your shoes. So, of course, I put my clogs out at night and I get candy back, so whatever. It's also a huge family holiday, and all of the family gets together on Sinterklaas, and they give gifts to each other with letters written to the person, but the letters are not from family members, they're from Sinterklaas. These letters are fun because not only are they letters or they're poems, but they make fun of the person a little bit. Like, you're not as good as you think you are, but it's okay, I still accept you, kind of thing. So it's always funny to hear these letters. Just because they have Sinterklaas doesn't mean they don't have Christmas. The Dutch actually designate 2 days for Christmas instead of 1. I believe that this is because they party into the second day, but apparently there's a whole lot more to it. It is a rule in the Netherlands that in every city center, there must be a Christmas tree on display throughout the entire Christmas holiday. So as you can see, there's different forms of the Christmas trees, as like up there. All their trees are just covered in lights, and they call it good. It is also a tradition to drink glühwein, which is warm wine. It's very delicious. And go to the Christmas market, Kerstmarkt, to buy your little trinkets and presents for your family. The Christmas market is mostly in every city. My most favorite holiday out of all the wonderful holidays celebrated in the Netherlands is New Year. The Dutch celebrate New Year's just like the rest of the world, but with a lot more fireworks and explosions. On average, the country of the Netherlands spends 70 million euros on fireworks for New Year's each year. People light on fireworks in the street all day long. It sounds like World War III, and it scares the crap out of you. Really, it does. But something that is typical to only the province of Friesland is garbage schieten, which is this photo. Here, and basically what they do is they take a metal container of some sort and put paper in it, and then they make it explode, and it launches all this paper out. I mean, people actually die doing this stuff because it's not necessarily safe. I would not recommend doing it. But the Frisians are considered the rednecks of the Netherlands. They're like the Texas of the Netherlands, so it's tolerated. And if you really, really want to have a cultural experience, you should go to Friesland for New Year's. My favorite part about Dutch New Year is when everyone runs outside at midnight and lights off fireworks that they bought. This goes on for at least an hour or until all their fireworks are gone. It doesn't matter how long it takes, they're lighting off every single one. Face it, the Dutch just know how to party and entertain themselves, okay? So whether you prefer to visit the warm Caribbean islands of the Netherlands or the chillier mainland, like Amsterdam, Netherlands will welcome you with open arms. Thank you. Questions at all? Comments? Yes?
How come they have a president and a king and queen?
So the monarchy, the king and the queen, they're more or less just like a symbol, you know? While the prime minister actually is like the head of the government and runs the country.
And you can get your passport stamped over here.
Thank you.
Thank you.